As of late, my TikTok For You page has diagnosed me as being desperate, and therefore I get a lot of tarot readings telling me the same thing over and over again, that my person in a no contact situation is dying to come forward. And I mean, I get it, I want it to be true as well. Usually these readings used to be in a setting of one-on-one, so the medium can tell you whatever you want to hear. In this case, it surprises me that 250,000 people resonated with this message enough to claim it and like it as well. And I have seen so many of these readings that I know some of the ways that they can start. They can start by saying there are no tags in this video, so the algorithm has wanted you to get this message. Or it could say something like, if you are born in one of these months, then this message is for you. Or, I can sense very heavy water or fire energy in one of you two guys' charts, so sun, moon or rising, then this message is specifically for you. And it seems quite interesting to me to find out one day how high is the chance that one of you guys has a water sign in either of you guys' charts, like sun, moon or rising. Knowing that there are 6 variables already, sun, moon and rising for 2 people, knowing that it is one of the 4 major types of signs, and that usually your sun, moon and rising signs are different. I'd love to be able to calculate one day how big are the odds that it's going to be at least in one of your guys' charts. Probably pretty likely. As I've tried to show you for the last few videos all about knowledge, I see myself as a rational thinker. But somehow I do want these readings to be true. I want the person in the no contact situation to come back into my life and apologize. But it is delusion. And I am consciously wanting them to pump the delulu back into my veins. Because it somehow does make me feel better. Knowing the sheer amount of readings that these people put out, it cannot possibly resonate with everyone, right? Is it just me, or am I the only one that's going to meet their twin flame in the month of October? Well, there are many things going on here, so let's unpack them. For one, the TikTok algorithm has diagnosed me as pathetic and desperate, so that's kind of hurtful, but you're probably right, TikTok, well played. But the fact that TikTok wanted to recommend this to me, apparently this is a common sentiment, especially the one that I keep getting recommended of being in a no contact situation with someone else. Apparently there's a demand for it, a sudden desperation for lots of people that turn to these readings to get reaffirmed. Or it might just be that these kinds of people find themselves in need for a reading. But I think it's more than that. I think in our culture there are many factors, especially in our dating lives, that make people be in no contact situations so often and do not know what to do, that they turn to readings. But that is a very interesting topic to talk about some other day. Talking about ghosting, about no contact situation, some other day, I promise. Today what I found more interesting, in fact, is to speak about how people believe things and how that influences your worldview. Like, why do I want to believe in these readings, even though I think myself to be a rational thinker? I want to help you making sense of nonsense. And I need to get better at this. So please, if you believe in this project, like, comment and subscribe. Share the video with your loved ones, especially those that are, like me, trapped in the TikTok For You page full of these readings. Maybe we'll together make some sense out of nonsense. First off, I wanted to have a disclaimer, because I unequivocally state that I do not believe in readings or any religion for that matter for the truth of it. But this video is not about analyzing the truth, because it could be usefulness to belief that has nothing to do with whether it's true or not. Either which way, I cannot prove you right or wrong in whatever you happen to believe in. I just want to make sure that in the sense that it makes you buy stuff from them, like healing crystals that are quite expensive, or reorient your life in order to suit the vision of someone else. I want you to be careful about that, but today we're just going to look at the usefulness of belief. And the reason we speak about usefulness when it comes to belief is just like thinking like a scientist, as we did last week. When we speak about falsification, that you frame your statements in a way that they can possibly be proven wrong if someone were to look into it. If I say that I have an invisible friend that I can only see, and therefore for you there is no way to prove me wrong, then it's not a very relevant discussion whether that friend is real or not, because he's real to me and he cannot be proven right, so not useful to talk about the truth. On the other hand, we also speak about the idea absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So, think for example, if you were encountered near a crime scene. The police arrests you as a suspect, does a 10-minute search and doesn't find any evidence that someone else committed the crime. There have been cases that the police just wants to have someone in prison, or they think you the one that did it, and so you end up in prison without any evidence. Because there is no evidence for your innocence doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. They should have probably looked better at it. And when it comes to religion and belief, there are a lot of things that we cannot explain yet. So I'm going to freely admit that I want to bypass the discussion about whether it's correct or not and just look at the usefulness. Because the usefulness, the effects of belief are very real, and how they make people feel better or connect to one another is real. So it's worth studying. So, how do we make sense of nonsense? A very real effect of the belief that there are outside forces or the universe conspiring to align things in a way for me is very comforting. It gives me the idea that the things that I cannot explain are somehow sensical. And funnily enough, that even works when you look at something cynically. I was looking cynically at all these readings that my crush would come back in contact with me after a no contact situation. And still, I knew it wasn't right, but it still comforted me. In the moment, it fed my delusion, and although I knew it probably wasn't correct, I felt that things were going to be alright somehow. The negative side of that could potentially be that thinking that things are going to be alright and not doing anything might prevent me from actually realizing the reality of it, that it's probably not going to work out, and moving on. But at that time, there's also a possibility that I just wasn't ready to move on. Maybe I need to have my time of grieving before I can move on to potentially someone else. But not just moving on to someone else. Maybe I haven't seen the need yet to move on, or I still have some lessons that I need to learn before I can go on. And that's also kind of the beauty of it, an added lesson, so to speak. Because you have to be able to get things in your life at your own pace. There's no one telling you that there is a standard speed that you should grieve. So that when your dog dies, you need to get over it in 3 months. When your partner dies, it's a year. Or when your breakup happens of someone that you've only known for a month, it needs to be 1 week. There is no one telling you how quickly you should live your life. We don't know how much emotional investment you had in that person or thing. And so take your time, allow yourself to feel and process these emotions so they do not go hidden behind the curtains and that they sprung up whenever something else happens. You need to be fully ready to move on. Another thing that I've noticed going around is that belief is much bigger than strictly religion and readings, the things that you can set aside like this is not rational. Every type of belief is this way. We take it very much too seriously. It's also truth tellers like your favorite podcaster, or this celebrity, or they are mystics, or they are self-help gurus. We take these people too seriously, and so we attach part of ourselves and our lack of meaning onto them. We hope to fill the void in our lives with our faith in them. And so what we do is we cling for dear life onto these shiny rocks or commandments or the tips of your favorite podcaster in order to fill the gaps in our life. But once you realize that we are taking this too seriously, you can start to take a step back and look at it like, why is this so alluring to me? Why do I feel like I need to believe in them? I'll take an example about belief that seems clearly ridiculous to you as well. Think about the ancient Greeks and Romans and how they believed in their pantheon of gods. We think of them that they thought that there were gods like Zeus and Ares that were all on the top of an actual mountain, Mount Olympus, looking down at us. It must have been quite a surprise then to Swiss climbers Frédéric Boissonnat and Daniel Boissy when they first climbed Mount Olympus in 1913 and found no gods. From the very little evidence that we have of the time of the ancient Greeks, what we do know is that while belief in the gods was widespread and they were worshipped quite heavily, it was more a supernatural belief than actually believing that they were physical beings on top of Mount Olympus. In many ways, belief in the gods, especially among the educated class like elites and philosophers, There was belief out there that the gods, their myths and their legends would serve as moral lessons to society and cautionary tales. The gods themselves were very much flawed, they were brutal, they were vengeful, and those stories were told and retold and reinterpreted among the hundreds of years that they were told. And some gods were recognized by some parts of Greece and other gods were not. And therefore it's important to know that the beauty of these lessons is they can mean whatever you want it to mean and has a usefulness to society whether they be true or not. These myths and legends were so universal about the human experience, like suffering and loss and jealousy, that it informed a lot of people about how to live and what not to do. It made a society work almost like our laws do right now and our societal expectation, keeping people in check because we have an agreed upon body of myths that we believe are to be virtuous or not. And so the beauty of these myths is that your mind is powerful enough to use the vagueness of the story or the universal nature of the story and apply it to your life, making it seem like it's a true lesson for you to be learned. And that's also the point that I'm trying to make. Is that the point of making sense out of nonsense here is that your mind can be trained by applying vague general statements, just like in the readings, and apply it to your life. Because you are not alone in feeling miserable sometimes. That makes you just like everybody else. And that's so great about you. Because you and your mind ultimately did the work to make all the general statements into gospel for yourself to make you feel better. Another making sense out of nonsense. Belief in practice doesn't have to mean that you think that it's true. An example of this is recycling. A common scam that we have been told by the fossil fuel industry is that recycling is the way to go to tackle climate change. If you just did your part, we might actually save the world. And so, if the world is still going down, that means that you didn't recycle enough. Well, although they have known for decades that the world was going to go down, instead of addressing their output, they chose their bottom line. And so they push the idea of recycling and your carbon footprint on people as a PR move to shift the burden of changing onto you. Even if we recycled everything that we were using, we wouldn't even save the world like this because they keep emitting. What we need to do is tackle them. That doesn't mean that recycling is worthless, however. Even though 97% of things that we put as separated trash ends up on the same pile anyway and is unrecyclable, it still is something that you're contributing. And so the feeling that you get when you do recycle, like I'm such a good person, I'm helping, doing my part, that's real. Even though you do not believe that recycling is the best way to go about it. So I want to end on one last story to make sense out of nonsense, to salvage the things out of things you don't believe in order to make the best out of it. It's a story about me and my mother, because before, when I was a child at least, my mother and I never really used to get along much. We used to fight a lot and we never saw eye to eye on many things in life. Still nowadays, we do not see eye to eye on many things in life, especially on how we deal with the people around us. But now I found a way to love her much more. Still, having deep, meaningful conversations about my life never really came natural to us because of that rift. But she has been starting to use these magical decks of the angels like readings, teach herself to do it. When she gives me a reading, they are honestly some of the best conversations that I've had with her. Not because she is only interested in me when she has to give up the cards, but by having those cards, it makes her ask questions that she usually wouldn't ask. It makes her try to look at my perspective in order to give me something that is useful for me. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not in that sense. It has been a vehicle, allowed her to try to get involved in my life, and we have honestly became much closer after this. So the level of depth in these conversations is truly a new thing because of these readings. And so by taking the win here, I'm not telling her that the readings are not right and argue with her about it. I just enjoy them for what they are. I don't believe that the predictions that she's making are going to get to be true, but I believe that the conversation that we have about them are valuable to strengthen our connection. So this is the takeaway. One thing I'm not going to do is attach too much weight to whether these statements of my mother are true or not, their predictions to be true or not. The one thing that is true is my connection to her being improved. If these readings were true, then the people around me know that I've been waiting for a prophesized perfect girl to roll around ever since the summer of 2016, and she has not come around, at least 7 years late. And maybe help out look for it, because the only thing I know about her is that her name is going to have 3 vowels in it. When I meet someone new, I always think about, does her name have 3 vowels or not? Of course, I don't believe that it is actually true like that, but it is a fun little inside joke between me and my friends, and thankfully you are in on the joke right now as well. So the skill that you can practice to make the most out of things, to make sense out of nonsense, is to be present in the moment and listen to whatever is presented to you in life without judgment. In that way, you become better at sifting through the nonsense and getting to the things that are actually valuable. And so what I try to do when I listen to something presented to me is that I want to withhold my judgment. I can pass judgment on whether something is true or false afterwards, but in the moment, I want to be present and listen, because then I can sift through the nonsense and understand where they're coming from, what is actually what they're trying to say, because you might never know what the very real effects are of the fake stuff that you're presented. So, that's another one. I really hope you like this one, because it's easy to think of things as just nonsense. It's more difficult to make the most out of things that we think of as nonsense. So tackling this beast of different kinds of knowledge might actually be enlightening for lots of you. If you liked it, please let me know by liking the video and subscribing, or comment down below your thoughts. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear it, or suggestions for other videos. And so, if there's nothing further, I'd love to see you in the next one.